definitively that over the course of my career, my bosses have not approved of the way that I hire people. It's just something that I've had to deal with, and I've taken it on the chin. And what do I mean by this? I have specifically made the point to make sure that I am overcompensating. Right now, I don't mean that in a way that they aren't valued for that, but I paid over what the minimum was to get people in. You know, whenever you are hiring someone, right, you got a little scale that you want to be hiring in. I always went towards the top end of that for candidates that I wanted to land. I would go and actually pay an offer above towards the higher end of the range. Still gave me some room to negotiate up if they wanted to come back. But when I wanted my folks, and this is the key of this, and we're going to get into this today, is when you are trying to hire for a position, that's not the time to it's not the time to play negotiating king. Like, this isn't like, you don't win by lowballing your folks. You win by getting the right people on the bus, and that's what we're going to be talking about here today. You know, I got a stack of articles that we're going to look at, and it's going to be an interesting day as far as the topics we're going to cover. We've got one on Eric Schmidt talking about work from home, and I think it provides an interesting insight for those that don't know, previous CEO of Google, or Alphabet as they're called now. Interesting insight into the worldview that these folks have, and their understanding of where they think they're competing at. So it's worth that look there. And then the other one we have here is going to be a discussion, an article from Fortune about how we always feel like, hey, the economy's doing well, the stock market's up, yet we aren't doing very well. And they go through and explain exactly what that is, as far as us being on the wrong side of the bet, right, of the gamble. Okay, so for those that don't know, my name is Ryan Howe. It's right down here. You can see I'm a business coach, works out of West Michigan, around the country. I come here live on YouTube pretty consistently every single day, just sharing information I share with my clients, and I hope to earn your subscription. So let's get right into it here. Links, as always, to the articles we're going to discuss and spend time on today are going to be in the description, so be sure to go check them out. So this is from Inc.com. This candidate declined a job offer over $5,000. The reason is instructive for any employer. And this is where my clients, we start. Before we get into this article, I want to be very clear on this. With my clients, we start with an understanding of what the total costs are for onboarding and training someone to be a fully capable individual to fill out an FTE, right? A full-time equivalent for that position. And the costs to hire someone are you know, extremely high. It's an upwards, let's say for a basic, again, just for a no skill entry-level position, you're still going to spend between $10,000 and $15,000 to get that person hired and trained. As you move up the ladder, when you get into, you know, supervisors, managers, VPs, etc., as you move up the chain, they can get into six figures rather quickly. The total cost to get these people onboarded and producing, and, you know, basically producing revenue at the rate that they should be. So when we look at this $5,000, you're going to see this. This article is very important for that. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so going through the whole recruitment process and losing their top choice over a lowball offer cost this company more than a few $1,000s. Darn right. And look at it, walked out the door. So let's see what they got here. A salary difference of $5,000 can seem like a lot of money to a job candidate, but it's really not going to make their paycheck that much bigger. After taxes, a single person earning $105,000 can expect to see about a $120 jump per paycheck if they get a raise to $110,000. Again, not life-changing money at that point. So why would someone ask for $110,000, get an offer at $105,000, and walk away without even an attempt to negotiate? And we're going to see here, Justin Peterson, president and CEO of the Peterson Group, a recruitment firm, explained one of the candidates walked away. Right? Said, so here it is. Last week, we lost a deal over $5,000. The client told me the range was 110 to 130. We presented a great candidate right at the bottom, 110,000. They loved him, skills check, personality spot on. Then I get the call. Justice, we're going to offer 105,000. I know he's at 110, but this will prove he actually wants to work for us. Yeah. We're gonna make them prove that they want to work for us after going through all of the hoops, you know, jumping through all the hoops, etc. all the pitfalls to get to the point where they can get to this job offer, right? They've done all those things. You got to just do one more to have it on the spot here. Okay. Now, Peterson tried to convince his client that not only was 110 still a bargain, but if they offered the candidate 115, which was still on the low end of the budget, they would have a candidate who was thrilled to work for them. Company said no, the candidate walked, and then Peterson wrote. The candidate didn't counter, didn't negotiate, she just said no thanks. The excitement gone faster than Black Friday TV. Moral of the story, discount shopping works at the mall, not in the talent market. Candidates aren't clearance items. Undervalue individuals during the offer stage, and you'll never get them to the start line. And this has been my experience when it comes to talent, right? And this is where a lot of my clients, where, you know, it's an education piece, and this is why I'm, you know, coming here sharing this with you all. Talent is portable. Talent can go wherever talent wants to go. So if you are not going out of your way, and when you have someone walk through and they are the person for you, you need to spend the money. Like that, you pay up at that point, that you've gone through all of the effort of building the right job description, building the right job ad, posting the job ad, sorting through the thousands of applicants, right, that we all have, having HR do their initial, all of the things, right, the different things to get to the point where you found your person, you've got your guy or gal, they're there, and then you go, let's see if we can still lowball them a little bit, see if we can negotiate that out, so you can get some sort of win out of it or whatever that is. And this is one of the things that, again, it is not the time to be a deal junkie. That shouldn't be the case. You should not be there trying to win at that point. The win is getting the person hired and getting them on the team, get him on the bus. Not, hey, I was able to, yeah, that's right, we got them lowballed on, you know, we saved $5,000 on this when they're going to be bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars for you. Like, seriously, come on. And this is where I ran into trouble, because I was the person that paid the $115,000 to hire people. Like, that's just what I did. I was not trying to, that's not the place where I was looking to save when it comes to talent. Okay. There's other areas where we would cut costs, etc. All right. Let's see here. Interviewing isn't free at that level. It's likely the hiring manager and peers who interview the candidate were earning $75 an hour or more per hour, add in taxes and benefits, and the company is paying somewhere around $100 an hour for their labor. 3 rounds of interview. Now, none of this is even close to right. Like, this isn't correct. There's other stuff that they're missing here. Like I said, the average onboarding, let's say at this level and their mid-level, is going to be about $30,000 total that you have to get them fully trained and get them onboarded. Okay. So no one wants to work for your company as badly as you think they do, especially talent. Talent wants to work where they're appreciated. They have the opportunity to do the things that talent wants to do, right? They want to create, want to cultivate, want to build teams, whatever it is you're hiring, but that's what talent wants to do their thing. If you are, but they don't need to work at your company, right? That's the thing. Talent will go where they're appreciated. Now, your company is your baby. You're willing to go through sleepless nights and months of no paychecks because you love your company, you believe in it. Your employees want jobs. They don't love your company like you do. You want them to love it like you do. You better give them an equal amount of equity in the company. Testing someone like this, which again, offering them a lowball offer to see if they're, you know, how badly they want to be here. Testing someone like this to know that they really want to work for your company instead of just wanting a job will backfire. Why would someone want to work for a company that thinks so little of you? People want a good job and they want good work environment. They want to do something interesting or impactful, but none of that matters if you can't meet the salary expectations. And that's where I've seen this with so many clients. They have this idea that, yes, we want to keep labor costs down. That's important for a business, but not at the expense of talent. You have to hire good people who are better at things than you are, and you have to compensate them at a high level. That's the way it works. It doesn't work any other way. That's how it works. Okay. Now, the company had valued the job at $110,000 to $130,000. Presumably, they had compensation professional create a salary range, right? They figured it out. Perhaps they made a guess, which a lot of companies do. But if they have someone in a similar job in that price range and they bring in this qualified person below the range and that person finds out, guess what? The new person is going to be pissed. Like, they're going to be upset. That's what you can expect to happen because people talk, right? People figure out how much they're getting paid. forget all the, and they've got some other stuff in here about, you know, whatever their demographics are. Forget all that crap. It's just simply just on the principle, not paying people what they're worth, what you value them at. And here's the thing, and if you are willing to go underneath the floor of your salary range or whatever it is, then you don't value that person more than a commodity. And they're going to treat you as such and walk away. Like, that's what happens, okay? Now, we want to respect candidates' time and your employees' paychecks. Now, I don't know if the candidate had previous salary discussions with the hiring manager, but obviously the candidate had this with Peterson, and Peterson assured them that their salary request was in range, which wasn't. The company completely disrespected the candidate's time and Peterson's time. Making a lowball offer is rude, wastes their time, and it wastes yours. Paying someone below market rate just because you can get away with it shows you disrespect all of your employees, not just the ones you're paying poorly. And that is ultimately where I come back to when I'm talking to my clients about this stuff, is that you have to go out of your way to show you value your people. And the way that you do that is very simple. You do it by making sure they're compensated correctly. Okay, so let's make sure this is a thing and you're doing your part. All right, so let's get on to the next spot here, which is going to be this article from where they're interviewing. It's an article about an interview with Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO, and it's on working from home. And it's just a perspective that I wanted to be able to share with you all, that you see in these larger corporations and where their mindsets are at. And I think it's important because I think a lot of people get this twisted, where we believe, let's say as employees, we're there to do work, right? To do the thing that we're hired for. And as long as we are doing the work we're hired for, then we're going to be fine, right? CEOs and executives don't think that way. They think about growth and how they're going to grow their company constantly. That's what they're worried about, is constant level of how do we grow this thing? Because if your company isn't growing in executive mindsets, you're going out of business slowly. Like, that's what happens. All right, so let's see what he has to say, because there's some interesting notes that we're going to talk about here. All right, so the former Google CEO has reignited the debate on remote work, stating that it hinders learning and collaboration, particularly for young professionals. So before we get in, let's think about that comment, right? That actual comment. It hinders learning and collaboration, particularly for young professionals. So what does that mean? Why is he saying that? He's not saying that we're not getting work out of the young professionals. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that our ability to train and develop the next level of leaders is being hindered because folks are working from home and not together. That's what he's getting at. All right, so he's looking 10 years down the road. Now, former Google CEO Eric Schmidt has once again raised concerns over a growing trend of flexible work, warning that could be weakening the tech industry's edge, according to Business Insider, speaking at the All In podcast, which not really my favorite podcast. It has its moments, but you know, I can see why he was on there for sure. So stating that working from home impedes learning, while an overemphasis on work-life balance risks damaging competitiveness, right? When he's looking at this stuff, he's looking at the entire world versus, you know, simply just coming in to do the job. Now, winning in tech requires making trade-offs, pointing out the key elements such as collaboration, mentorship, and innovation suffer in remote environments, which is true. That is the case. As reported by Business Insider, the remarks echo Schmidt's previous criticisms of Google's flexible work policies last year. He suggested the company was falling behind smaller, faster-moving AI startups, partly due to its remote work culture. Although he later softened his stance, his latest comments reflect a continued belief that in-person work is essential for high-performance teams. And I mean, I want to make sure that I am not dismissing this, because there is that. I mean, that's just true. If you are looking at developing and growing a team, a cohesive team that is going to be growing and is capable of operating at a higher level, being in person is extremely important. It is there. That doesn't mean all the time, and that's part of the reason was the hybrid piece, where it works for companies. But that is fundamentally true. You want to have folks together to grow. That doesn't mean that necessarily needs to be the case for everyone at all costs. Okay, and I think that's one of the things where this requires a more nuanced discussion than simply just saying work from home bad, which work from home isn't bad inherently. It's how it's implemented and how you're using it. Okay. Now, I'm not in favor essentially of working at home. Told the podcast, think about 20 something who has to learn how the world works, which is very true. The mentorship and the time that I got with the seasoned professionals when I first got into industry was extremely important. You know, college didn't do crap for me, and then my previous work experience was somewhat useful, but I did not learn. I've learned more being around the seasoned professionals than I have through my own study and through college. So that is correct. That he learned a great deal from listening to older co-workers on microsystems in early of his career. How do you recreate that in this new thing, which is very challenging? Schmidt said he's in favor of work-life balance, and that's why people work for the government, before saying sorry 4 times, right? And that's one of the things. I used to work in the government, so I completely get what he's saying there. If you're going to be in tech, you're going to win, and you're going to have to make some trade-offs, and that's extremely important, right? The former Google CEO highlighted the U.S. tech industry's competitive challenge from China, which demanding 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week is prevalent, and it's illegal, but it still happens. Like, that's who the tech folks are up against. Now, Eric Schmidt noted that while China has laws against such excessive work hours, many companies and employees still adhere to the grueling schedule, creating significant competitive pressure for U.S. businesses. Schmidt's views come at a time when the tech industry is still navigating long-term implications of hybrid remote work, and frankly, they're still figuring it out just due to the large number of layoffs that they're having right now. I mean, it's since 2022, and even, it has just been a massacre in the tech world, the number of jobs that they've lost due to all the reasons, right? And it hasn't gotten any better. It's continuing to see a consistent drumbeat of tech layoffs happening as they're realigning. And so to go back to this, so the concern, this is what we talk with my clients about, is that we're worried about the work from home because we want to make sure that we are, to be competitive, you need work from home, all right? What I'm talking with my clients about is that I understand all that. Let's make sure that's understood that we are working from the office first and foremost, and there's a hybrid answer to allow you to work from home sometime, right? And that's kind of the trade-off versus this is a remote position with some in office. We have rewritten and basically just refocus everyone that we expect you to be in the office. We want you in the office because we have a longer term view on our time horizon is much further out than it is for other companies who are simply just looking like, okay, we've got to keep everybody satisfied now, and just, we don't want to lose folks, so we're just going to do work from home. What we've done, and it's taken about 1.5 years for my largest client, is we have transitioned, as we said, no, you will work in the office first. Then there are some times when absolutely we're going to allow you to do hybrid, right? It's going to make sense. And folks didn't want to stay with us, and so they left, and we've hired new people, but the expectation's been set that you will work from the office. And it's taken 1.5 years, taken a long time, but we got to the point now where everyone who's in there knows we work in the office first. That is really what needs to happen. And it's because we want to be able to have those mentoring, coaching, and collaboration times versus trying to schedule a meeting to talk with someone because you have those concerns, right? There is something about that proximity that is extremely important that has been it's been overlooked and dismissed because of the the ability to have folks work from home. Okay, so yeah, that's that big piece that we were just, I wanted to have that on there. I thought it was important to hear the echo, and he did a good job of explaining why people are against work from home. And it's not because folks want control. It's the people want to have, the executives just have a longer, they have a longer time horizon, and they're looking at folks who are in junior positions. They know they're not there necessarily to produce at a high level. They're there to grow, develop, and learn. So in order to do that, we look at it from a training standpoint, that we need you in person to make sure that your training's right. That's really what this comes down to. Okay. A lot of folks don't want to hear that. They don't care for that, but that's the reality. That's what people are thinking about. Okay. All right. So last one we got here is from Fortune. This came across my feed today, and I was just like, was probably one of the more interesting articles that I had where it came through here. If you can't work out why you're struggling when the economy is doing okay, it's because you're on the losing side. That's about as clear as it can get. And that's how I think how the vast majority of us feel Like, man, we just cannot get any traction in this economy. What's going on between, well, here, this right here. Look at all of these people spending, like, and it's a ton that's costing a bunch of money, and we just can't get our feet underneath us. So why is that? And it's because we're on the losing side. So Oxford economics reports a growing divide in the U.S. economy, with older, wealthier household thriving. All right, not going to say it's boomers again, but it's boomers again. I'm not knocking, it is, that's who it is, while younger and lower income consumers struggle. Then they get into tariffs and fiscal policies disproportionately benefit higher earners, while SNAP and Medicaid cuts hit low income households. A tightening labor market, a tight labor market, not tightening, a tight labor market. Longer unemployment spells and smaller firms shedding jobs exacerbate the gap, leaving younger consumers under pressure. Overall spending is being sustained primarily by the wealthy households, highlighting economy's dependence on their consumption. All right. Now, I had a video about this last week, specifically showing that the high earners, right? The biggest worry we have is when high income earners start losing confidence in the economy. What happens? They stop spending. And right now, their discretionary income, like their spending, is keeping the economy going right now. And the reason they're doing that is because they're looking in the future and they say, hey, things are fine for us, so we can continue to spend. When they lose confidence and they stop and they say, hey, I'm not so sure about what the finances are going to look like in the future, they're going to stop spending. And that's going to completely obliterate the economy. And here's a good example of this, right? You can actually see this paradigm, right? There's dichotomy, actually dichotomy is the word I want, playing out in real time. The boomers, let's go millennials, Gen X, and boomers all drink, right? Less millennials as a percentage drink than Gen X, and less Gen X than boomers, right? But let's just say that right now. They drink when they go out. They go to restaurants and they buy alcohol. When you look at Gen Z, who are pulling up the rear, they don't. They don't. It's like 38% of Gen Z don't drink. They have no desire to have any alcohol. So when they go to restaurants, and this is where it plays out, and this is why restaurants are struggling. Seasoned citizens they don't really go to they're not, when they're going out to restaurants, they're not going out as much. They're not spending, so that alcohol isn't being bought there, but typically it's the younger folks that are at the restaurants doing their thing. Well, they're going to the bars and restaurants and they're getting food, but they're not getting alcohol. And alcohol has been the secret, like wink, wink, that little secret that actually keeps restaurants and bars profitable, that no one really talks about. So when what's happening here, and this is what's will play out in the greater economy, is when the discretionary income isn't being spent, you start seeing businesses fail. And that's why you see a large number of brew pubs that are going out of business. You're seeing restaurants that are going bankrupt. You're seeing all of the things happening because they're not spending money on the alcohol. All right. So now if you're struggling to find a job, get a promotion, shop the way you used to, you're not an anomaly. In fact, you're on one side of a bifurcated economy. That's the word I actually use quite a bit there. Where wealthier, older people are faring. All right, we talked about that. Now, I don't want that. Where's that here? All right, here we go. Using data from the Haver Analytics and CBO, Oxford Economics found that tariff and changes to the fiscal landscape will have a net negative effect on the real income for the lowest 0 to 20% of earners, approximately 2.5% of the next 10 years. So you can expect to see that, yeah, tariffs are going to have some effect on there for sure. They're not being passed on right now, but they are in full, but you're going to start seeing prices go up. That's going to be happening here probably today. To be honest, you're going to start seeing those prices go up. Conversely, the packages outlined by the Trump administration increasingly benefit those higher on the income ladder. Those in the 40 to 60% income segment will see a negative impact on their spending, a little over 0.5%, while fiscal packages will boost them approximately 1%. And then meanwhile, top percentile is going to be a 2%, and then there will be off by 0.5%. So really what they're saying is that the folks who are not making very much money, they're going to go down faster. And the folks that are actually in the higher end, they're going to go down. They're going up, but at a slower rate, but they're still going up. Almost 3% faster. I think that's what the math works out to. Now, tariffs are a tax on all consumers. Based on current tariffs, we'll estimate they'll increase the average household cost by $450 annually. Again, it's less than 1% of spending. He added CBO's distributional analysis reveals tax and spending bills effect as regressive, right? So, without getting into that, basically progressive means you pay a higher tax as you make more money. Regressive means it has a greater impact as you make less money. Like, that's what that means. And it's going to be regressive. And that tends to be the case anytime that you have any sort of structural change when it comes to price points, i.e. supply shock type stuff. So for instance, taxes are a big piece, right? So tariffs, input costs negatively affect the lowest income brackets because they don't have the disposable income to be able to absorb it. Higher income, they have nothing but disposable income. They can absorb pretty much anything thrown at them. Hey, that's where we're at. All right. I want to get down to this next piece here. So digging deeper into the data, Pierce writes, besides policy changes, the labor market drives consumer divergence. Reveals a stark contrast between employed and unemployed individuals. Younger and poorer workers experience rapid most cooling of conditions on a tightening labor market in the years ahead may alleviate some of these disparities, though structural elements persist. And what they mean by that, and I want to again, go check this out. Links are in the description. It's well worth time and energy to see. What this means is the tight labor market that they're talking about. Whenever you have a tight labor market, that means you have a shortened supply of ready talent, which means wages are going to go up. The issue right now, though, is that businesses currently, and this is probably for the next year at least, do not have the ability to forecast out and see what their costs are going to be for input. So they're going to be hesitant to raise their wages too much, right? So in the short term, you're going to see all these issues having a negative effect on that, where real wages are not going to get pushed up. Next year, because of the tight market, because of what we can expect to be occurring, I would say you can start seeing wages going up at that point. But until then, this is why we're struggling, folks. Unless you are in the top, really top 10% of earners, 15 to 10%, but probably 10%. Everything that happens is a direct hit to your ability to be able to, your disposable income. That's just what it is right now. And it definitely hits the lower income, at a much greater extent. But here's the thing, when it comes to the economy, and this is really the bigger piece here, it doesn't matter if the folks in the bottom 20% aren't spending money. They just don't have that much money to spend, period. So it's not going to have that type of effect. It's really the middle income and the lower upper income folks that are feeling it right now. And that's where a lot of the spending goes on in the economy. So they are struggling as well too. That's the problem. So they do not have as much discretionary income, which is affecting what's being spent and which is affecting hiring and business purchases and all the thing. So until we're able to work through these tariffs, until we're able to work through the changes in the fiscal policy at the federal and state level, we're going to continue to see the struggling going on, and everyone's going to be feeling it. Okay. So that's really what I'm talking about with my clients here. Again, hopefully I earned your subscription today, folks. Again, and if you haven't been here before, I appreciate you making this far. This is great to see you. Take care, and I will see you next time.